Comrade Chair and comrades, after watching that video, does anyone now doubt what the role of the National Shop Stewards Network is playing in the trade union movement and has to keep playing? It is a badge of honour to everyone here and all those who associate themselves with the NSSN that alongside the most militant unions in the TUC, we have been the ones to popularise the idea of a 24-hour general strike. And we believe this is a crucial task that is necessary to seriously confront the austerity offensive of this government. And yes, we support all tactics that can be used to resist the cuts. As with the victorious struggles of the sparks, the electricians in the construction industry, and the blacklisting, we support protests, we support demonstrations, we support civil disobedience, but we are unapologetic in stating that the central role and responsibility has to be played by the unions in calling and organising mass strike action against this government's programme. And then to draw behind the unions, still the mass organisation of up to 7 million working people, all those who have their lives devastated and ripped apart by these brutal cuts. People like Stephanie Bottrell, her family still coming to terms with the devastating loss of a working class woman driven to horrific suicide because the extra £20 a week that the bedroom tax would have meant to her and her family would have meant not putting food on the table. 3 million people now missing a credit card payment in the last year, and 2 million people missing a council tax payment. This is the Britain where the loan sharks of the payday loan companies prosper. This is the Britain where 500,000 people go to food banks, the modern day soup kitchens, and many of those are working. But this is also the Britain where the richest 1,000 people are worth £450 billion. And if you want to know what £450 billion gets you, that is 5 times the original cuts budget put forward by Osborne in autumn 2010. So over 400,000 public sector workers sacked, with just as many in the pipeline. A continuous pay freeze that means workers are on average 15% worse off in real terms than they were in 2008 when the crisis started, while the average pay rise for the CEOs in the companies is 13%. A bedroom tax, a tax on benefits while the rich have their tax cut if they actually get around to paying their taxes. And yet where 3 years ago there was a cuts budget of 83 billion by the 2015 general election, it is now 95 billion and counting, and the estimate it will last till 2017, not 2015, and some even 2020. Comrades, this is not a situation that can hold. So the question is, what are we going to do about it? Last September, the NSSN took up to 1,000 activists to Brighton to lobby the TUC conference. We were proud to stand alongside the Prison Officers Association when they moved their motion for the TUC to consider the practicalities of a general strike. Proud to stand by the RMT who seconded the motion and PCS who spoke in favour of that motion. Delighted that the motion was passed, but it still sits on the table. Why? Have things improved in the last 9 months? No. Another year of vicious cuts with another £11 billion to come. And in that debate at TUC conference, there were some union leaders who argued that we should wait for a Labour government. Well, if that day does come, and that is not at all certain, we now know that will be a government of continued austerity, another government where the poor are blamed for the bankers' crisis. Last Saturday, I turned the TV on and there were 2 stories headlining that day. One made me angry, the other one delighted. One was about Miliband and Balls making a statement about accepting the condemned cuts. And scandalously, they tried to justify that by evoking the memory of the 1945 Labour government. Well, my message to Miliband is, you cut if you want to, Ed, but don't do it in the memory of an Irene Bevan and the government that created the NHS and much of the welfare state. You see, they've been spooked, I think, by the votes of UKIP. They believe that the votes of UKIP show that the mass of people have swung to the right. But we know the real story. It's far more complex than that, and people are angry but feel abandoned by the mainstream parties. But there was another story that morning. Another story. It was about the Brazilian government being forced to offer concessions because of the mass movement of protesters that have shook that country over the last week to 10 days. Like Turkey, what has changed everything is the entry of the masses, the working class, the poor leading sections of the middle class who are being ruined by the crisis of capitalism, by the system, by the rule of the banks and the corporations. And it is that entry, that movement that has transformed the situation in Brazil, that has shifted the balance of power and the stories in the media to the left and to the working class. It is a glimpse of what the impact a 24-hour general strike in Britain would have. It would raise the sights of our class. It would increase the confidence of our class and increase the consciousness and understanding of what their power can do. But it would shake the bosses, it would shake their government, and even put pressure on Miliband and his party rather than him sucking to the bosses and the employers. And I'll make this warning to the Tories when they look at what they think is the quiet on the surface. The movement in Turkey was about people protesting in a park and stopping a development. The movement in Brazil was because of fare rises on the buses, but of course it was a symptom of deeper anger and frustration that exists in society. Who knows what could trigger a movement off in Britain over the next months or even years? But we don't need to speculate what would happen with a general strike in Britain, do we? Because we were marching on the streets of London on March 26, 2011, with 750,000 others. We were striking on November the 30th, 2011, with 2 million others in a day of mass mobilization and strike action. It should have, could have been the start of the coordinated action that could have escalated and spread from the public to the private sector. But unfortunately, some of the unions, Unison and GMB, stalled that movement, and that has led to a pause, although, as that video shows now, N30 inspired many other workers to take action all over the country since then. And those strikes, those disputes, many of them never reported, show that a general strike in Britain would be supported by many workers inside and outside the trade union movement. Comrades, the NSSN will keep its hot breath on the back of the necks of the union leaders. We rallied and lobbied in Brighton last September, but we want to go back to this year's conference in Bournemouth. It might be smaller in scale, it's a bit harder to get to than Brighton, but our members in the southern and the southwest regions want to organise a rally. We've booked the room provisionally, so if you give us your okay, we'll go ahead with it and organise a lobby of the TUC conference and build a nice reminder to the delegates and the leaders that when they come to the conference, we were here a year ago, what's happened to the POA motion that sits on the table. We also want to help build a mass TUC demonstration to welcome the Tories to Manchester on September the 29th, but we want a contingent that marches under the banner of the National Shop Stewards Network that says, name the date for a 24-hour general strike. We hope that demonstration is massive, 50,000, 100,000. Who knows how big that demonstration could be. The bigger, the better. But imagine how more powerful it would be if that TUC demonstration gave notice to Osborne and Cameron, Pickles and Maud, that we have named a date for a mass strike against your austerity offensive. And if the trade union leaders are listening, there's a couple up here, but I think they're on our side. But if some of the other trade union leaders are thinking, I can think of a date. You see, PCS members are in a war of attrition at the moment to defend their terms and conditions. Billy's union is gearing up for action to defend the Royal Mail from privatisation and the members' jobs and terms and conditions. A member of his are on strike this morning in Bridgewater and in the southwest as well. Unison members in the local authorities in Scotland are going to ballot on pay. The teachers started their action in the northwest of England this Thursday just gone, and the plan is for that to culminate after rolling around the country to a one-day strike, national strike, in November. We call on the union leaders to get in a room together and agree on a date that we strike together. I've looked at the diary. N30 is on a Saturday this year, but N20 isn't. What about that for a date that people can have a look at? And if the TUC won't do it, we encourage the left unions to form a coalition of the willing unions who can act together and coordinate action. Name the date. We'll work with any organisation in the union and anti-cuts movement to prepare the ground and make sure that that's the biggest success. I'll finish with these points. Have a good conference. Take advantage of the debates. Take advantage of the workshops. We want as many contributions from the floor this morning and this afternoon. Tell us about the struggles that you were involved in on a daily basis, the disputes that you're undertaking or planning to have. Tell us about the victories and the defeats. Tell us about the good and the bad, because that's how we learn from it, to debate and to discuss. And then hopefully to agree that we march on out of here at 5 o'clock this afternoon to face the whole trade union movement together under the banner, all out together in November to defeat the cuts of this government. Solidarity, Congress.